Welcome to Daily Focus. I am up here at Kobiak, and we have our annual meeting for the year for the IFBF. And so my wife and I came up last night, and we had some wonderful times with uh, Brother Vaughn. And the title of this conference kind of is When Trouble Comes. And so, what a wonderful thing to be able to go to the Word of God, to be able to hear from good men who have gone through difficult times in ministry, but who has faithfully stayed true. And I don't know if you know John Vaughn's testimony, but he has been through a number of trials, and the Lord has seen him through, and he's been sharing those wonderful things with us. And it was a wonderful service last night. Then there was a round table, some good times, and we're kicking things off here in a few minutes this morning. But I wanted to go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 15 or 16. And Paul says, when Timothy comes, I want you to receive him, and I want you to allow him to minister in peace. I don't want you giving him a hard time. I don't want you despising him in any way. Paul lets us in on a little bit of what was the challenges for Timothy when we see his letter written to him, when he says, Timothy, let no man despise thy youth, but you be and that is a really, really important aspect where Timothy is saying, you know what, I may not be as old as you, I may not have as much experience as you, but I have this same Spirit of God, and I have this same Word of God. And I think it's important for us to always allow God to work through his vessels. But then Paul says this amazing thing about him. He has the same testimony. He has the same reputation for loving the work of God and doing the work of God just as I do. And so Paul was appealing to the respect that they showed to him, the love they had for him, the trust they had in him. And he said, you know what? If you love me, trust me, respect me, then you ought to do the same thing to Timothy when he comes to you. And the reason is he loves the ministry. He embraces the ministry. He is as responsible with the ministry and the call to the ministry as what I am. And so Paul reminds us here in 1 Corinthians 16 to make sure that we're looking at our testimony, looking at our reputation, and asking ourselves this question. When we go to see somebody, what is it that would be said of us? Now, we can fool people, obviously. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, Paul reminds us that, I can fool you and I can fool me. I'm never going to fool God. But there is something to say about our testimony and our reputation when our attitudes and our actions produce a reputation. And everyone wants a good reputation. At least most people want a very good reputation. And so they guard their actions, they guard their attitudes to a certain extent. The question is what kind of reputation do you have? Is your reputation of one that loves the ministry, is responsible with the call of God upon your life? You see, God has called us to a number of ministries, not necessarily things that we could put into a vocational full-time ministry. He does call people. He called me into vocational full-time ministry, and I thank him for his grace. But not everyone is called into full-time vocational ministry, but everyone is called to ministry. And therefore, we're called to minister grace. We're called to minister mercy. We're called to be good stewards of the gospel, making sure that we're sharing it. We're called to the ministry of reconciliation, repairing relationships as much as lieth within us, as much as we can do to make sure we're living at peace with all men. And God is saying, listen, when you look at what you've been called by God to do and to be, are you being responsible? And what is your testimony? Because there is tremendous power in a good reputation, in a good testimony. Timothy had this testimony that he loved the work of God and was faithful and responsible with it. May God help us all to be responsible and faithful to our call today. And may God bless you. I'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.